All right, welcome to another deep dive with us. As always, you've sent in some sources, and well, we're going to pull out the really important stuff for you today. The stuff that matters,
Exactly.
and hopefully surprise you a little bit along the way.
Yeah, yeah. Always fun to dig in and see what we can uncover.
So today, we are taking a look at Andrew Igbineweka's The 10 Commandments of Networking.
Ooh, interesting.
We've got some excerpts from his book, and we're going to try to really pull out the core ideas for you.
Sounds good.
Our mission today is very clear: to understand the fundamental principles of effective networking,
Mm.
and, most importantly, how those principles can directly benefit you, the listener, your personal life, your professional life,
Absolutely.
how to really make this work for you.
Yeah, networking. I mean, it can feel like such a buzzword,
Well, yeah.
but when you really dig into it, as Igbineweka does here, you start to see it's really about fundamental human interaction,
Right.
but kind of taken to a strategic level. And I think what's so fascinating here is that the author's own journey is really a testament to this.
Okay.
He talks about how, he was someone who was actually quite shy,
Uh-huh.
and really intentionally building his network helped him to overcome that shyness
Wow.
and unlock all sorts of opportunities.
That's amazing.
So, right from the start, you see the power of what we're about to discuss.
Yeah. And it's worth keeping in mind who Igbineweka wrote this book for, right?
Yeah.
He dedicated it to entrepreneurs, young professionals, business owners, and university students.
Okay.
So chances are, wherever you are in your career or, your ambitions, this is tailored for you.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's unpack this, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Igbineweka is talking about networking,
Mm-hmm.
what's his core definition? What does it really mean according to him?
Well, Igbineweka's view of networking, it goes way beyond just like swapping contact details or, going to a bunch of events.
Right.
For him, it's really fundamentally about creating
Hmm.
relationships where both sides benefit,
Yeah.
but with a really, really strong emphasis right from the outset on
Yeah.
what you can give.
Interesting. So if I was just, like a listener and I just did like a quick Google search,
Yeah.
you'd find a definition, like interacting to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts.
Mm-hmm. Pretty standard.
Yeah. So what's the extra layer?
Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
What does he bring to the table?
That more is absolutely the focus on contribution.
Okay.
He actually quotes Bob Berg, who puts it perfectly. Networking is simply the cultivation of mutually beneficial give-and-take win-win relationships. It works best, however, when the emphasis is on the give part.
Okay.
And what's so fascinating is how this idea of offering value just reappears again and again throughout Igbineweka's advice.
Okay, so why is this give aspect so crucial in Igbineweka's framework?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of tangible impact does this have on your networking efforts?
Well, he explains that when you lead with what you can offer, it really sets a positive foundation
Okay.
for the relationship and for, what you might receive down the line.
Mm-hmm.
It shifts the focus away from like simply trying to extract value
Yeah.
and towards building genuine connections. If your mindset is primarily about what you can get out of every interaction,
Right.
it can often be, well, honestly, kind of off-putting.
Yeah, for sure. For
You come across as needy.
Yeah.
By focusing on contributing, you demonstrate that you're not just looking for a handout,
Right.
but rather you're aiming for like a mutually supportive connection. So the core insight here for you as a listener is to approach networking with that "what can I offer" mindset. It fundamentally shifts the dynamic and builds stronger, more sustainable connections.
That makes a lot of sense. So moving on to the why,
Okay.
Igbineweka, it seems, really enthusiastic about why we should all be networking unashamedly.
Yes.
What are the main reasons he lays out that should motivate you to network?
Well, he highlights a range of really compelling benefits. One that stands out, significantly is access to job opportunities
Right, yeah.
that you're not even going to find advertised publicly.
Interesting.
He mentions a pretty striking statistic that around 85% of job openings never make it to like the public job boards or, those big websites.
Wow, 85%. That's huge.
Yeah, it's a hidden job market.
So for you, the listener, right, what kind of practical steps can you take to tap into this hidden job market through networking?
Mm-hmm.
What else does he say are the advantages, putting yourself out there and networking intentionally.
Well, he also talks about how networking broadens and deepens your perspective.
Okay.
When you interact with people from different backgrounds, with varied experiences,
Yeah.
you gain insights that you simply wouldn't encounter otherwise.
Right.
This can be incredibly valuable for problem solving, for sparking innovation, whether you're an entrepreneur or working within a larger organization.
Yeah.
And, plus he makes the point that genuine networking can actually lead to valuable friendships.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Relationships built on, mutual support, shared value.
Yeah. It's not just transactional.
Exactly. It goes beyond that.
That's a great way for you to think about it,
Yeah.
right? We think about it purely transactional.
Yeah.
What other perks does he bring to light?
Well, he emphasizes the gradual boost in confidence
Okay.
that comes from networking. By consistently putting yourself out there
Yeah.
and offering value,
Mm-hmm.
you grow both personally and professionally.
Wow.
And this naturally builds your self-assurance.
Yeah.
He also points out how networking with, colleagues and superiors within your workplace
Mm-hmm.
can actually help facilitate promotions.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
When people know you and they know what you contribute,
Right.
you're more likely to be considered when opportunities for advancement arise.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
And finally, he stresses that networking just increases your visibility, turning your connections into advocates who will, speak positively about you, even when you're not in the room.
Right.
So it's like having a team of cheerleaders out there.
Wow. Okay. So now we understand what networking is, at least through Igbineweka's lens, and why it's so important.
Right.
Now, he structures his approach by breaking networking down into different types and directions.
Okay.
Can you walk us through that structured approach so that our listeners can kind of see how these different facets fit together?
Absolutely. So Igbineweka categorizes networking based on purpose context, direction, and platform.
Okay.
Let's start with purpose context.
Okay.
He identifies 3 main types here that are important for you to understand as a listener.
Okay.
First, there's professional or operational networking.
Okay.
This is really focused on your work-related goals and building relationships with, colleagues or others in your industry to exchange information, to collaborate effectively.
Okay.
He gives the example of, reaching out to someone in another department to work together on a specific project.
Right.
So think of it as like your day-to-day professional connections, but like approach with a little bit more intentionality.
Got it. So for you, this is about being more deliberate in how you connect with your immediate professional circle.
Precisely.
Okay.
Then he talks about personal networking.
Okay.
This involves building relationships outside of your immediate workplace with the aim of both personal and professional development.
Okay.
This could mean, joining professional associations or connecting with individuals who share your interests, but, come from diverse backgrounds. So the goal here for you is broader access to information and different kinds of opportunities.
Okay, so expanding beyond your immediate professional sphere.
Yeah.
What's the third type based on purpose?
The third type is strategic networking.
Okay.
And this is where you intentionally combine elements of personal and professional networking to specifically seek support and even sponsorship for personal projects or your business ventures. It's about consciously connecting with people who possess the specific skills, resources, or influence to help you achieve particular goals.
Okay.
So, think of it like this. You have a goal to launch a new product. Strategic networking would involve intentionally connecting with investors, marketers, and potential partners who have the specific skills and resources to help you achieve that goal.
That's a really clear way to understand it. So networking with a very clear objective in mind.
Exactly.
Okay, now what about the direction types?
Okay.
So who are you connecting with in terms of their career stage or where they are?
Right. So here, Igbineweka looks at who you're connecting with relative to your own, career journey. So horizontal networking is about connecting with those who are more advanced in their careers or who you see as role models.
Okay.
And that's the networking up aspect, which, is often top of mind.
Yeah, for sure.
But it also includes networking down, which is about connecting with people who look up to you as a mentor.
Okay.
Recognizing that you also have value to offer.
Right.
Then there's vertical networking, and this is all about building relationships with your peers.
Got it.
people who are in a similar professional space or at a similar career stage. And he highlights, peer mentoring as a key benefit of this type of connection. So it's not just about reaching for the top, but also connecting with those on a similar level.
Right.
And even those you can help along the way.
Right. Real sense of community and mutual growth.
Exactly.
Now, for the platform, this seems pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Where are you actually making these connections?
Right.
Online? In person?
It might seem that way initially, but Igbineweka adds some valuable insights for you here.
Okay.
So online networking is clearly about building connections using, the internet,
Right.
particularly through social media platforms. He actually shares his own success story with online networking and specifically recommends it as a valuable starting point, especially if you consider yourself an introvert, as it allows you to kind of build initial rapport and comfort before moving to in-person interactions.
Yeah.
Then there's in-person networking.
Okay.
And while he sees the value of online connections, he really strongly emphasizes the lasting impact of physical, face-to-face interactions.
Okay.
He even quotes Paul Faux, who says, "The more hands you shake, the more money you are likely to make."
There you go.
Really underscoring the power of those direct personal connections.
Okay.
So, for you, a blended approach seems to be the most effective.
Right.
Using online tools to initiate and nurture connections, but not underestimating the importance of meeting people in person when possible.
Okay. A balanced strategy, combining the digital and the physical world.
Exactly.
All right. Now let's get into the heart of the matter, right?
Okay.
The 10 Commandments.
Yes.
The very first one is quite direct. Do not appear like the problem.
I like that.
What's the core message behind this initial piece of advice for you, the listener?
The fundamental idea here, and it's crucial for you to grasp, is to position yourself as someone who brings solutions,
Okay.
not someone who adds to the existing challenges.
Right.
Igbineweka emphasizes that no one wants to add more negativity
Right.
or complications to their network.
For sure.
He cautions against, coming across as constantly needy, helpless, or like a drain on other people's time and resources when you reach out.
Right. You don't want to be that person.
No, definitely not.
So he specifically mentions, do not play the hide-and-seek game when it comes to volunteering. What's the point he's trying to get across to you with that?
So he's talking about individuals who volunteer, maybe for the sake of having the affiliation on their resume or social media,
Right.
but they don't actually contribute meaningfully to the cause.
Right.
He argues that doing the bare minimum not only harms the organization you're supposedly helping, but also reflects very poorly on your character and your work ethic.
Okay.
You won't gain any real recognition. You certainly won't receive any genuine recommendations. And essentially, you're training yourself to avoid responsibility.
Wow. Okay.
He stresses that actively contributing your skills and time builds your capacity and leads to recognition and recommendations naturally.
Right.
You don't even have to ask for them.
So actions really do speak louder than words.
Absolutely.
For anyone who volunteers or is part of any kind of group, what's the other key aspect of this first commandment that you should take away?
Okay, so that's the strong encouragement to always share your ideas with your superiors.
Okay.
Igbineweka argues that this not only provides potential benefits to the organization you're a part of, but also strategically positions you for future growth.
Right.
Your superiors are constantly looking for talented individuals who can contribute innovative thinking.
Right.
And by proactively sharing valuable ideas, you demonstrate your capability and significantly increase your visibility when it comes to, potential promotions and salary upgrades.
Okay, so be proactive and offer value.
Exactly.
Okay, now the second commandment is come to the table half full.
Okay.
What exactly does Igbineweka mean by that?
This commandment is fundamentally about being prepared to offer value in your networking interactions.
Okay.
Igbineweka emphasizes that truly thriving relationships are built on a foundation of mutual giving and receiving.
Right.
But the key is that you need to be ready and willing to give something first. He uses a very practical example of asking for a recommendation letter.
Okay.
Instead of just making like a generic request, You should make it as easy as possible for the person you're asking
Yeah.
by providing them with relevant information, maybe your portfolio, or even like a draft of the letter itself to kind of guide them.
Right. Made it as easy as possible. So
Right.
it's about making it easy for others to support you
Yes.
by being prepared, by offering something in return.
Hmm.
What else falls under this idea of, you coming to the table half full in your networking efforts?
He also highlights the importance of investing in yourself and your own endeavors when
Okay.
you're seeking like partnerships or mentorship.
Right.
You can't realistically expect others to invest their valuable time and energy in you
Yeah.
if you haven't already laid a solid foundation, of your own development and effort.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Additionally, he makes a really relevant point for today's world. The value of conducting like a thorough social media audit
Okay.
to ensure that your online presence aligns with your networking goals and the professional image you want to project.
Right. That's a really important point in today's digital age.
Yeah,
Your online presence is absolutely part of what you bring to the table,
it is.
which leads us to the third commandment. Your digital footprint is who you are.
Okay.
This seems pretty self-explanatory,
Yeah.
but he goes into a lot of detail, right?
He does. It does seem straightforward, but he really stresses the profound significance for you.
Okay.
He points out that your digital footprint often creates the very first impression you make.
Yeah.
Even before any physical meeting or, direct interaction,
Right.
people are very likely to search for you online,
Mhm.
to learn more about you after an initial connection, or even just hearing your name.
Right.
He defines your digital footprint as essentially all the online information associated with you. So this includes, photos, comments you've made, content you've shared, videos you appear in, and much more.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes that this digital footprint has a very, very long memory.
Yeah, he shares some cautionary tales, right?
He does.
To really drive home that point.
Yeah, so he mentions a concerning story about someone, facing some consequences because of something that they had posted online many years prior.
Oh, wow.
And also the resurfacing of an old tweet by the athlete, Toby Amusan.
Oh, right. Yeah.
These real-world examples really vividly illustrate the potential lasting and significant impact of your online activity.
Yeah.
And so he provides some actionable tips for you as a listener to manage your digital footprint effectively.
What were some of those?
Well, these include ensuring that your online content aligns with your values,
Okay.
tailoring it to the opportunities you're pursuing, proactively sharing relevant stories about yourself and your work, being very mindful of the content you appear in, and ultimately striving to be authentic in your online representations.
So think very carefully before you post anything online because it contributes to your lasting online reputation.
Exactly.
The fourth commandment is arm yourself with the right questions.
Okay.
Why is this such a vital tool in networking situations?
Asking the right questions is absolutely crucial for you to engage meaningfully in networking conversations and to gather truly valuable information.
Okay.
Igbineweka emphasizes that you need to tailor your questions strategically
Right.
based on the specific networking context.
Well.
Whether you're connecting with someone, more senior in their field or with a peer at a similar level,
Right.
he actually includes a really useful modified list
That's
of
exciting.
insightful questions originally from Harvard Law School
Wow.
that are particularly effective for informational interviews
All right.
and general networking interactions.
Okay, so what kind of questions does he suggest? Can you give us some examples across different areas?
Yeah. The questions are helpfully categorized for clarity.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're trying to understand someone's job, you might ask, what are your primary responsibilities in your current role?
Yeah.
To gain insight into their career path, a good question is, what key experiences or decisions helped you get to where you are today?
Okay.
To understand their day-to-day, could you describe what a typical workday looks like for you?
Right.
He also includes important areas like challenges. So what are some of the biggest challenges you currently face in your role?
Okay.
Advice. What's the best career advice you've ever received?
Sure.
Salary-related questions, though he advises, like approaching those cautiously
Yeah.
and later in a relationship.
Right.
Resources. Are there any particular resources you would recommend for someone looking to enter this field? Career progression. What are some typical career paths in this industry? Job search strategies. If someone was interested in a role like yours, what steps would you recommend they take?
Okay.
And even how to ask for referrals appropriately.
Okay.
Who else do you think I should speak with?
Right. That's a really comprehensive set of questions. It shows that you've done your homework.
Yes.
You're genuinely interested.
Mm-hmm.
He does caution, however, that not all questions are appropriate in every situation.
Right, as.
You need to be mindful of the context.
Exactly. The appropriateness of a question really depends on the existing relationship you have with the person.
Yeah.
And the specific context of the conversation.
Right.
Questions that are, perfectly suitable for an informational interview, where the expectation is a deeper dive into someone's career, might not be well received at, a casual networking event or during an initial, online connection.
Right. It's about being thoughtful and respectful in your approach.
It is.
The fifth commandment takes a slightly different angle. You are a product, sell yourself.
Okay.
This might sound a little transactional or uncomfortable to some of you listening.
Right.
How does he frame this idea?
It might initially sound transactional, but he reframes it in a really helpful and empowering way.
Okay.
So he breaks down the core characteristics of a product from a marketing perspective.
Okay.
A product, he explains, is something that provides utility or benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It can be tangible or intangible.
Okay.
It's exchanged for value.
Right.
And ultimately, it meets a specific need.
Okay.
He then really cleverly relates each of these characteristics to your own skills, abilities, experiences, and personal brand.
So in this context, selling yourself isn't about being pushy or aggressive,
Right.
but rather about clearly communicating the value that you bring to the table
Exactly.
in any interaction or relationship.
He emphasizes the crucial importance of differentiation.
Okay.
So what makes you unique
Right.
and valuable? This is your packaging and branding that helps you stand out in a positive way.
Right. Right.
He also highlights that as a product, you should consistently deliver value and satisfaction to your consumers,
Right.
whether that's your employer, your clients, or your collaborators within your network.
Got it.
He even uses his own, consistent content sharing on Instagram as a practical example of selling without directly selling.
Okay.
By making his, expertise and insights visible and accessible to his network.
Right.
He also quotes Meredith Mahoney, who wisely says, know where you want to go and make sure the right people know about it.
Yeah, so know your worth and make sure the right people are aware of it.
Exactly.
The sixth commandment shifts the focus back to the principle of giving.
Okay.
Eat your cake only when you have given it. Make friends before you need them.
I love that.
This really emphasizes the long-term, value-driven approach.
Absolutely. This commandment so powerfully reinforces that principle of giving before receiving in the context of, your networking efforts.
Right.
Igbineweka quotes Zig Ziglar, who famously said, "You can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want."
There you go.
And also Susan Roane, who aptly describes networking as an enrichment program, not an entitlement program.
Right.
So these quotes really encapsulate the spirit of this commandment.
So it's about building genuine relationships rooted in contribution rather than just expecting favors or opportunities simply because you've made a connection.
He cautions you against falling into that trap of entitlement, for sure, where you feel you're owed something just because you've, added someone to your LinkedIn.
Right, exactly.
He also stresses the importance of being, consistently mindful of your tone and approach when communicating with your network, ensuring that it reflects a spirit of generosity rather than demand.
Right.
And he firmly reiterates that principle of give and it shall be given.
Yeah.
Highlighting that by focusing your energy on helping others within your network,
Yeah.
you will ultimately create, more significant and lasting opportunities for yourself in the long run.
That aligns perfectly with the emphasis on the give aspect of networking. Now, the seventh commandment presents a little bit of a twist on a familiar saying.
Okay.
Birds of a feather flock together. You are not a bird.
I love that.
What's the underlying message here?
This commandment really actively encourages you to expand your network beyond the confines of your immediate industry or professional field.
Okay.
Igbineweka points out that many people mistakenly limit their networking efforts to
Yeah.
those within their own, area of expertise.
Hmm.
But he argues that building a truly diverse network brings a wealth of, unexpected and invaluable benefits.
So why is it so important to connect with people
Yeah.
who operate outside of your familiar bubble?
He lists several key advantages.
Okay.
So, cross-industry networking can be a really powerful catalyst for new ideas, inspiration, as it exposes you to different approaches,
Mm-hmm.
innovative strategies,
Yeah.
entirely fresh perspectives that
Yeah.
you might never encounter within your own field.
Right.
And, you can often learn and successfully apply strategies
Okay.
that have proven effective in completely different industries
Mhm.
to the unique challenges within your own.